Have you ever asked yourself why, despite all your prayers, all your tears, all your quiet moments with God, the breakthrough hasn't come yet? Why it feels like the doors are still locked, the blessings still out of reach, and heaven remains silent while your soul is screaming? That question isn't just frustrating, it's heartbreaking, because deep down you believe, you trust, you've tried, but it's like something is standing in the way, something invisible, something powerful. The truth is, blessings don't just fall, they're received. And to receive, your hands must be open, your heart must be clean, and your spirit must be free. But many times we carry things we don't even realize. We wear them, not on our bodies, but on our hearts, on our minds, on our souls, and these invisible garments block what God is trying to pour into our lives, not because He's withholding, but because we're unknowingly resisting. There are things women wear, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, that act like barriers between them and the blessings designed with their names on them. It's easy to point outward, to blame circumstances, people, even timing. But if we don't pause and look inward, we miss the truth. And the truth is what sets you free. Some women are dressed in heaviness, not because they want to be, but because life dressed them that way. Hurt clothed them in bitterness. Disappointment wrapped them in fear. Rejection stitched insecurity into their very identity. And somewhere along the line, they started wearing these things like second skin. But what if the very things you're wearing are blocking the very things you're praying for? This is not about clothes. This is about soul wear. The weight you carry, the attitudes you accept, the beliefs you repeat to yourself in silence. These are the true garments. And if they don't align with God's truth, they act like armor, keeping out everything God wants to bring in. Love, peace, purpose, healing, joy, breakthrough. It's not that they're gone, it's that there's no space for them to enter. Human psychology tells us we adapt to whatever we repeat. If you tell yourself long enough that you're not worthy, you begin to live like it. If you wear rejection like a badge, you unconsciously push away acceptance. If you clothe yourself in fear, you shrink when you should rise. That's how powerful the mind is. It builds your reality, and the spiritual world moves through that reality. But here's the beauty. What you wear, you can take off. You are not stuck. You are not sentenced. You are not finished. You are in process. You are being refined. And God doesn't expose these things to shame you. He reveals them to heal you. Because on the other side of release is restoration. On the other side of surrender is favor. On the other side of shedding the old you is the life that has always been waiting. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about asking yourself, what am I still wearing that doesn't belong to me? Is it shame from your past? Is it doubt in your worth? Is it anger that's been there so long you don't even notice it anymore? Whatever it is, you need to know it is not you. It is on you, but it is not you. God's blessings are not earned. They are received. But to receive them, you must come with open hands, not clenched fists, with a surrendered heart, not a hardened one, with trust, not torment. And when you let go of what weighs you down, you rise. It's that simple and that hard. If you're still here listening, it means something in you is ready. Something in you knows it's time. You're tired of being stuck, tired of being almost blessed, tired of circling the same mountain. This is your moment. And if you stay with me till the end, you'll understand exactly what needs to be removed, and more importantly, what God wants to replace it with. Because He's not trying to take something from you. He's trying to give something to you, something holy, something beautiful, something that fits the real you, the healed you, the strong you, the woman you were always meant to be. And it starts by recognizing what you've been wearing that no longer serves you, what you've been carrying that never came from Him, what you've been holding on to that's actually holding you back. You were made for more, and deep down, you already know it. We often think the battle is outside of us. We look at the challenges, the people who hurt us, the lack of opportunities. But the real battle, it's happening inside. It's spiritual, it's silent, and it's affecting every single area of your life. What's worn on the soul eventually shows up in your decisions, your confidence, your peace, your ability to hear from God. You can't walk in full purpose while carrying things that were never meant to be part of your story. That's why it feels heavy. That's why it feels like you're always fighting, always waiting, always almost, but never quite arriving. You may not realize it, but your spirit has a wardrobe, and what you wear in that space determines how freely you can move. Imagine trying to run with chains around your ankles. That's what happens when you wear pain as identity, when you wear failure as truth, when you wear fear as protection. It holds you back from running toward the very thing you've been praying for. But here's what's powerful. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. When you start to notice what you've been emotionally and spiritually dressed in, you reclaim the power to take it off. God doesn't bless the version of you that's hiding behind what the world told you to wear. He blesses the real you, the bold you, the free you, the woman who dares to step out of the shame and step into the promise. You weren't made to be covered in regret. You weren't made to be wrapped in fear. You were made to reflect His light, to walk with authority, to stand in truth. And the moment you stop wearing what broke you and start wearing what builds you, something shifts. Heaven responds. The atmosphere around you changes, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you become aligned. You become light enough to receive, strong enough to carry it, focused enough to walk in it. And that is when blessings begin to flow, not around you, but through you. What you carry on the inside shows up in every part of your life. And sometimes it's not the devil fighting you, it's the weight you refuse to drop. One of the heaviest things a woman can wear is unforgiveness. It starts small, a moment of betrayal, a painful word, a broken promise. But if left unhealed, it grows, it hardens. And before you know it, you're carrying it every day like armor, thinking it's protecting you, when in reality, it's only blocking you. Unforgiveness clogs the channel between you and God's blessings. It keeps your heart closed. It robs your peace. It silences your joy. And what makes it more dangerous is how quietly it settles in. You tell yourself you're over it, that it doesn't matter, that you've moved on. But inside, the wound still bleeds. And God can't fill a heart that's full of pain you refuse to release. Human psychology proves that holding on to resentment doesn't hurt the other person. It hurts you. It's like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer. But forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's about healing. It's about choosing to be free instead of bitter. Because you can't hold on to both. You either carry the pain or you carry the blessing, but never both at the same time. God is not asking you to forget. He's asking you to surrender, to let Him handle what you were never meant to fix on your own, to trust that He saw the injustice, He saw the betrayal, He heard what they said behind your back, and He has not forgotten. But as long as you wear unforgiveness, you're choosing to stay in the prison instead of walking through the door He already opened. The moment you choose to release it, you step into something greater. Your hands open, your heart softens, your spirit breathes again. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you'll ever do. And it's the first step to making room for everything you've been asking God to bring into your life. Some women walk through life wearing a quiet lie called insecurity. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers that you're not good enough, that you're not beautiful enough, that you're not spiritual enough, that if people really knew you, they wouldn't stay. And over time, those whispers shape your decisions, your posture, your faith. You stop reaching, you stop dreaming, you start shrinking. And what you don't realize is that insecurity becomes a cloak that hides your God-given identity. The world teaches comparison, and comparison breeds insecurity. Social media feeds it. Culture celebrates it, but heaven rejects it, because God didn't create you to be like her. He created you to be fully, fearfully, wonderfully you. And when you wear insecurity, you're disagreeing with the very one who made you. You're saying His creation wasn't enough, that His design fell short. But that's not truth. That's trauma. That's pressure. That's fear dressed up as false humility. The enemy doesn't have to destroy you if he can convince you to doubt yourself. Because once you stop believing in who you are, you'll stop pursuing what you're called to do. And that's how many women miss the blessings designed specifically for them. Not because they weren't worthy, but because they didn't believe they were. But here's the truth. You don't need to feel confident to be called. God doesn't wait for your self-esteem to rise before he starts using you. He's already chosen you. He's already anointed you. You're not becoming worthy. You've been worthy since the day he breathed life into you. And when you finally take off the robe of insecurity, something powerful happens. You begin to walk different, speak different, pray different. You stop hiding. You start healing. You stop apologizing for being who God made you to be. Your breakthrough is on the other side of knowing who you are, and who you are is not small. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand in your power, not because of who you are alone, but because of who lives in you. And when you wear that truth, no blessing can be blocked. One of the most dangerous things a woman can wear is hidden pride. It doesn't always look like arrogance. Sometimes it looks like independence that says, I don't need anyone. Sometimes it looks like silent rebellion, the part of you that knows what God asked, but you hesitate, delay, or do the opposite because it's uncomfortable. Pride doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just quietly resists the voice of God. And resistance, no matter how small, creates distance. Pride builds walls. It says, I'll protect myself. I'll figure it out alone. But you weren't created to live disconnected from the one who guides your steps. Obedience isn't about control. It's about alignment. When you obey God, you position yourself under his covering. You step into his flow. But when you walk in pride, you step out of that covering. And the moment you step out, you expose yourself to chaos, confusion, and missed blessings. Rebellion isn't just breaking the big commandments. It's also ignoring the quiet promptings in your spirit, that nudge to forgive, that whisper to stay silent instead of reacting, that call to let go of what feels safe but is spiritually harmful. Pride tells you your way is better, but God's way leads to peace, to clarity, to abundance. And pride, no matter how subtle, will always block what God wants to release. The human mind craves control because control feels safe. But faith requires surrender. You can't have both. Psychology tells us we build habits around comfort zones, or even spiritual ones. But transformation requires stepping out. Laying down pride means trusting God's process more than your own logic. It means admitting that you don't know it all, and that's okay. When you take off pride, you make space for wisdom. You allow God to lead. You soften your heart to correction. And that humility becomes the gateway to favor. Because God lifts the humble. He pours into the ones who are willing to be emptied of self so they can be filled with him. The moment you choose obedience over ego, you unlock blessings that were waiting for your surrender. There's a kind of clothing many wear without realizing how destructive it is. It's the need for approval, the craving to be liked, accepted, validated by the world. It sounds harmless, but it's dangerous. Because when you dress your identity in the opinions of others, you undress your spirit of truth. You start chasing applause instead of purpose. You begin to mold yourself to fit in instead of standing firm in who God called you to be. Approval addiction is silent. It disguises itself as ambition, as popularity, as success. But beneath it all is fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of standing alone. And that fear makes you compromise. You say yes when you want to say no. You hide your values so you won't offend. You quiet your faith to be more relatable. And in doing that, you trade the presence of God for the praise of people. But here's the truth. People's approval is temporary. It shifts with trends, moods, opinions. One day they cheer you. The next day they question you. If your worth is tied to their reaction, you'll always feel unstable. Psychology shows us that people-pleasing leads to burnout, anxiety, even identity loss, because you're constantly performing, constantly adjusting, constantly wearing a mask. But you weren't made to live like that. You were made to walk in freedom, real freedom, the kind that doesn't ask permission to be bold, the kind that doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, the kind that says, if God is pleased, that's enough. When you stop needing everyone to understand you, you finally understand yourself. When you stop needing the world to clap, you hear God whisper, well done. God's blessings don't follow the crowd. They follow obedience. They follow truth. And the moment you take off the need to impress, you make room for the power to influence. not from performance, but from purpose. Because the woman who no longer needs validation is the woman God can fully use. She's not distracted. She's not diluted. She's dangerous to darkness. And her blessings are unstoppable. Another silent garment many women wear is fear. Not the kind that screams in panic, but the quiet kind that hides behind logic. The fear that whispers, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if I get hurt again? It doesn't paralyze you in one big moment. It creeps in slowly. It makes you overthink. It makes you delay. It convinces you to play small when God is calling you to rise. And over time, you stop reaching for the very things you were created to walk in. Fear is not just an emotion. It becomes a spiritual outfit. And once you wear it long enough, you begin to believe it belongs to you. You confuse it with wisdom. You call it protection. But it's not keeping you safe. It's keeping you stuck. Because fear and faith cannot live in the same heart. One will always silence the other. And the one you feed the most is the one that will grow. Fear blocks blessings because it limits obedience. It questions everything God says. It demands guarantees where God asks for trust. And blessings flow through movement, through bold, uncomfortable steps. But fear convinces you to wait for perfect conditions, which never come. So you end up stuck in a cycle of spiritual hesitation, watching doors open for others while you wonder why you're still waiting. But fear is a liar, and you were not created to live under its shadow. God gave you power, love, and a sound mind, not anxiety, not doubt, not hesitation. That means you have authority to reject fear. You don't have to feel brave to act in faith. You just have to decide. Fear doesn't leave when you feel ready. It leaves when you move anyway. And when you finally take off fear, everything changes. Your prayers sound different. Your choices shift. Your confidence grows. You begin to walk in rooms knowing you belong. You start taking risks, knowing God will catch you. And heaven begins to release blessings, not because you were fearless, but because you believed anyway. And that kind of faith makes the impossible possible. When you wear fear, insecurity, pride, and the hunger for approval, you carry more than emotion. You carry spiritual weight. And that weight starts to feel normal. You get used to the heaviness. You adjust your pace. You lower your expectations. You stop asking for more, not because you don't want it, but because you've been conditioned to believe it's too heavy to carry. But you were never meant to carry these things. They are not your identity. They are not your protection. They are the very things standing between you and the life you've been asking God for. This is why you feel tired even when you rest. This is why you feel stuck even when you try. Because the weight is not on your schedule. It's on your spirit. And what's on your spirit shows up in your decisions, in your relationships, in your ability to believe. Some blessings haven't been delayed by God. They've been delayed by the burden you refuse to let go of. You can't soar when you're anchored to pain. You can't build when your hands are full of fear. You can't move forward while dragging what broke you in the past. Psychology tells us the body adapts to weight. Over time, muscles adjust, but spiritually, the soul does not. You don't get stronger by carrying pain. You get slower. You get quieter. You begin to lose clarity. And clarity is everything when you're walking in purpose. You need vision. You need strength. You need space. And the only way to get that is by releasing the unnecessary weight. God never called you to be a carrier of pain. He called you to be a vessel for power. And vessels can't overflow when they're already full of what doesn't belong. This is your reminder. It's okay to let go. You don't need to carry what God already died to free you from. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to earn healing. You just need to stop agreeing with what was never yours. Because the moment you drop what drains you, you create room for what will build you. And that's when blessings begin to flow, not around you, but through you. The power to change what you wear lies in your hands. You have the choice to remove what weighs you down and to put on what lifts you up. The Bible calls it throwing off everything that hinders. It's an act of courage, a decision to no longer let the past fear, pride, or insecurity define you. When you take off these heavy clothes, you make space for something new, something holy, something powerful. God doesn't just want to take things away. He wants to replace them. He wants to clothe you in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. These are not just nice words. They are spiritual garments that draw blessings and open doors. When you wear them, you move differently, you speak differently, you believe differently, and the atmosphere around you changes. This shift doesn't mean you become perfect overnight. It means you choose growth over comfort. You choose faith over fear. You choose God's truth over lies you've carried for too long. And when you do, you show the world what a woman touched by grace looks like. Strong, radiant, unstoppable. Psychology teaches us that what we wear mentally and spiritually affects how we act. If you dress in humility, you will walk in wisdom. If you dress in boldness, you will take risks that lead to breakthrough. If you dress in peace, chaos cannot shake you. The clothes you wear on the inside change everything outside. Imagine waking up each day choosing your spiritual wardrobe. What will you put on? What will you leave behind? This is the moment you decide who you want to be, because blessings aren't just about what you receive, they're about who you become. And when you choose to wear what God wants for you, you become a magnet for the abundant life He promises, the kind of life full of purpose, joy, and favor. You were made for this. Now it's time to live it. Take a moment to reflect on what you are still wearing that blocks the blessings meant for you. Sometimes the hardest part is admitting what no longer serves us. It might be a habit, a thought pattern, or a mindset that has become comfortable, even though it weighs heavily on your spirit. It could be fear disguised as caution, pride wrapped in independence, or unforgiveness hidden behind silence. These are not just things you do. They are clothes you wear every day without realizing how much they limit your freedom. The truth is, God doesn't want a version of you dressed in confusion, fear, or doubt. He wants the real you, whole, honest, and open. When you strip away the layers that keep you stuck, you allow space for God's blessings to fill your life. But that requires courage. It requires vulnerability. It requires surrender. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to let go of what no longer fits. Remember, blessings are not blocked by God's hand, but by the barriers we hold on to. It's not about punishment, it's about preparation. God is preparing you for something greater, and sometimes that preparation means shedding old things. Shedding old beliefs that say you're not worthy. Shedding old fears that tell you to stay small. Shedding old wounds that keep your heart guarded. This process is not always easy. It might feel like losing parts of yourself. But in truth, it's finding the parts God created to flourish. It's trading heaviness for lightness. It's walking out of the shadows into your purpose. And when you do, the blessings aren't just gifts. They become a new way of living. You don't have to carry the weight anymore. You don't have to wear what limits you. God is calling you to step into freedom, into favor, into the fullness of His blessings. The question is, will you answer that call? Will you choose to take off what blocks your blessings and put on what invites them in? The choice is yours, and it's the first step toward everything you've been praying for. God's blessings are waiting for you, not outside, but within reach. The only thing standing between you and the life you've been praying for is what you choose to wear in your spirit. When you let go of what's heavy, what's false, what's broken, you create space. Space for healing, space for joy, space for purpose. And that space is sacred. It is the place where miracles are born, where prayers find answers, and where dreams come alive. You were not made to carry the weight of past mistakes, doubts, or fears. You were made to rise above them, to walk with confidence, knowing that God's favor surrounds you like a shield. The journey may not always be easy. The path may have obstacles. But the woman who chooses to shed what blocks her blessings steps into a power greater than any struggle. Faith is not about ignoring reality. It's about believing that God's promises are bigger than your circumstances. It's about choosing trust over worry, hope over despair. And that choice begins when you decide to stop wearing the things that hold you back. When you do, you align yourself with God's plan. You open your heart to His timing. You invite His grace to work in your life. Imagine living each day free from the weight of unforgiveness, insecurity, pride, the need for approval, and fear. Imagine walking boldly into your purpose, unshaken by doubt or distraction. This is not just a dream, it's your calling, and it's closer than you think. Blessings are not reserved for the perfect. They are for the willing, for the brave, for the woman who chooses to take off what blocks her and put on what builds her. So stand tall, take a deep breath, and make that choice today. Your breakthrough is waiting, and it's time to wear the garment of victory. The decision to let go of what holds you back is one of the most powerful choices you will ever make. It's not a one-time event, it's a daily commitment. Every morning, you get to choose what you wear in your spirit. Will you put on doubt, fear, and the opinions of others, or will you dress yourself in faith, courage, and the truth of who God says you are? This choice shapes your destiny. When you choose to release what no longer serves you, you make room for God's favor to flow freely. You begin to see life from a different perspective, one filled with hope and possibility. You start to recognize opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You find strength in places where you thought you had none. Human psychology teaches that change is hard because our brains crave safety and predictability. But true growth happens outside of comfort zones. It happens when you step into the unknown, trusting that God is leading you. When you take off the garments of old wounds and put on the robes of grace, you become unstoppable. You don't have to carry the past into your future. You don't have to wear fear or insecurity like a uniform. You can choose to dress in the armor of God's promises. You can choose to walk with confidence, knowing that blessings are not just for others, they are for you. The woman who dares to make this choice becomes a beacon of light in a dark world. She becomes a living testimony of God's faithfulness and power. So, today, make the decision to change your spiritual wardrobe. Let go of what blocks your blessings and put on what invites them in. Stand tall, knowing you are worthy, loved, and destined for greatness. Your breakthrough is not just possible, it's inevitable when you choose to wear victory.